welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name's Kate and every Friday I bring you a book review. And I just want to say sorry that there wasn't a book review last week. Technology has just not been my friend this week. I couldn't get anything off my camera card. I think it's corrupted, so I'm going to have to get another one, and my ring light has also broken. That is on the way, so apologies for the rubbish lighting. I've done my best, but technology has just not been my friend recently. And before we get into this week's book, I just want to do a quick trigger warning for you and say that this book does deal with themes of assault, child abuse, child sexual assault, and that if that's not something that's for you, then please do not watch any further and don't read this book. I've got lots of other books reviews that I've done that I've linked all below for you, so go and watch one of those instead. And while we're on that, please do like and subscribe. It does mean the world to me, and it really helps get these videos out there on YouTube for everyone else to enjoy. So all of that out the way, and this week we're going to be talking about The Childfinder by Rene Denfeld. For those of you who have watched my Box of Stories unboxing, you will know that the books I got in that box of stories, so you will know a little bit about it already. Came in my box of stories, and I said in my box of stories I would have picked it up in a bookshop based on the cover. It's something that probably would have appealed to me, but looking at the back, reading the back, it's probably not something I would have picked up. Probably would have thought it's a little bit sad, and it is sad. This book definitely is sad, but I think it was definitely worth a read. And that's what's so good about a box of stories, is that it gives you books that you wouldn't necessarily read otherwise, and that's why I signed up for it, to try and kind of push myself out of my reading comfort zone. And this book is so beautifully written. I cannot tell you, the writing in it, it's just gorgeous. Rene Denfeld is a really talented writer. The way she uses words is just mesmerising. It literally says it on the front, it's mesmerising by Heat. Heat magazine say it's mesmerising, so you know it's right. But honestly, the way she talks in this book, it's so beautiful. It really is one of the best written books I think I've ever read. The language and the way she describes things is just brilliant. She really draws you in. So the cover of this book, that is kind of set in an area that's very woodland-y, and it's cold, and it's quite a remote area. So it's somewhere that doesn't necessarily remote, and it's quite northern in the US, and it's not somewhere where the snow necessarily melts in the summer, so the snow's there all year round. And the snow is almost like a character in itself in this book. The way it's talked about, the way it's written about, whether it's just lying on the ground, sitting on the ground, about the snow when it's falling, and kind of the soft thud of it on the snow that's already on the earth, and dealing with snow, living in snow, walking on snow. It's just almost like a character in and of itself, which is so beautifully. It is 270 odd pages, 272. So it's not a long book, and it's only that big. And I've read this very, very quickly, I think in the space of a couple of days. So I would really recommend it if you're looking for something that's a quick read that will stay with you. And I can't get more into this book without talking about the two central characters in it and how their lives parallel with each other. And I was really thinking of the best way to do this without doing a spoiler, and I filmed this video a lot of times because I've accidentally been giving away a spoiler. Come up with the best way to talk to you about it, and that is to read the back of it. So I'm sorry for anyone that's watched my unboxing video and has already heard the back of it. You're going to get a brief refresher of that. What were you running from then? She had asked. Monsters was all that Naomi could remember. Naomi Cotter has been running all her life, but now she has a purpose. She finds missing children when the police have stopped searching and the press have moved on. Naomi is the one person parents can turn to. Somewhere out in the woods, the snow child is waiting. She doesn't know who she is anymore, and her past life seems like a dream. But she is laying a trail so that someone can find her. And I think that really sums up the two characters in a very, very brief, very good nutshell, and how their lives are almost the opposite to each other. So Naomi can't remember past a certain age in her life, before she is with her foster family, when she was with these monsters that she's run away from, she cannot remember anything of that, and that comes back to her in dreams. And the snow child can't really remember her life before she's in the situation that she's in, and she dreams of that life. So she dreams of the life where she was with her parents and her family and all the things she did there. And Naomi has blocked out, and it comes back to her in dreams, her previous life where she was with these monsters. So it's really interesting kind of parallel in that. That's kind of what draws Naomi to find these children, to being the child finder. She's actually just a private investigator. That's what she is, but because she's a private investigator and because she's had this urge to run her whole life, this is what keeps her going, it keeps her moving. And it's how she can find them. I guess she just has a kind of sixth sense. She's really drawn to them, and she's got the time and the resources that maybe the police wouldn't have to really kind of dig in and find her children that she's looking for, whether they're alive or dead. She always finds a resolution to the case 9 times out of 10. She's very successful. She does, and I think that is really because she's, well, it's never confirmed, but it is very much alluded to in the book with these monsters, that Naomi was a taken child herself, an abducted child herself, which is just heartbreaking. The circumstances in this book are really heartbreaking, especially with Naomi, I think even more in a way, because she's older and she's blocked out all of this, and she doesn't really know what's happened to her previous to being with her foster family, which I just cannot imagine not remembering anything that happened to you up to a certain age, just not remembering your life before that. And she says in the book that there's only 2 things she's certain of. One is her name, and the other one is a spoiler, so you're not getting that out of me. But just knowing that you're only certain of those 2 things, of 2 things about yourself, I cannot imagine how strange that must be for someone, how that must be as your reality. It just makes me feel very lucky. And that's why she is so good at this, and she's so drawn to these children. And when she finds them, she can, relate to them, I guess, in a way. And she kind of urges them not to block it out like she has, to kind of make it a part of them, which is completely understandable and makes total sense. And on the other side of things, the snow child who is dreaming of her previous happy life with her family, which is where she should be. And parts of the snow child story, kind of aging-wise, reminds me a little bit of Madeleine McCann. Obviously the circumstances and the situations are completely different, because this one is all kind of cold and winter and snow. Madeleine McCann was obviously sun, and kind of the ages. The snow child is similar kind of build to what Madeleine McCann was, kind of just a few little similarities in that, not obviously the cases. And she's not, for the most part, she's not kind of unhappy or miserable where she is. She's obviously very young, and she's been there for a few years. So she was very young when she was taken, and she's still very young. Not necessarily know any difference. She does remember her previous life, but it's as if it was a dream. She kind of feels like she only remembers really the part of her life where she's been in this situation, been in kind of her captive situation. And her situation is, I don't know how I feel about it. I just feel heartbroken by it, because my feeling for it is that it's just really sad, and it's just a series of unfortunate events and situations, and it makes you, I don't know, it just makes you think of kind of nature versus nurture and what someone's only ever known. And that's just really heartbreaking, because if the abductor hadn't found the snow child when the snow child was found, she wouldn't be alive. So in that way, the person who abducted her saved her and doesn't treat her badly for the most part, and lets her out where she can kind of leave this trail for someone to be able to find. Obviously the abductor shouldn't have done what they'd done. They should have found the snow child and taken her to, you know, the nearest hospital or nearest bit of civilization, which is what you would hope any normal person would do if they come across a child in a very perilous situation. However, it's a bit more complicated than that with the snow child, because the abductor's background, I guess, or the way that they've come into be in this situation. It's really hard to talk about this without giving a spoiler, but it's kind of something that left me really conflicted after reading this book. I really didn't know how I felt about it, because part of me felt that completely kind of understood why the abductor did what they did and were doing because of the situation that they'd been in. And then another part of me was like, well, surely your rational brain is to do this. You know, you find a child lost and you take it back to like a police station, hospital, wherever. But I guess if you don't know any different, if you've not been brought up in a certain way, if you've not been brought up in society, then you maybe don't know that. It's a real dilemma for me, and I'm still not quite sure how I feel about it. I just feel that it's really, really sad and really, really heartbreaking, and that's almost why this book is really happy sad. The snow child in effect gets the ending that I guess the abductor wanted. It's so hard to kind of talk about this without doing a spoiler, and this is the main thing that kind of left me after this book, or stayed with me after this book, is how you were raised and how you grow up. And also, if you're not necessarily someone who has all the understandings of society, because for one reason or another, maybe it's a disability, maybe it's something else, maybe you just haven't been brought up in that way, it's just really sad. And yeah, again, the way that is written, it's so beautifully written that it makes you, like, it gives you the reaction that I'm having. It's making me really think about it and just question and just feel so sad for the whole situation. It's just a really sad situation that didn't necessarily need to happen, but happened because of one person and one person's weird mentality and take on things, which I guess is a thing in society. People are just weird. They're just strange, aren't they? Well, Naomi is on the case, and she kind of she talks about it too, unthreading like a ball of yarn when she's on the cases. And this book really does unravel, like, well, I would call it cotton, she calls it yarn, but like it really does. And I think that's part of the magic of this story. It's the location. It's Naomi not quite knowing her past, but trying desperately to get to grips with it, almost, to come to terms with it, to figure out what it is. And then there's the snow child, and her past is kind of slowly slipping away from her. She's subconsciously kind of desperate to get back there. She's leaving little trails around so that she can be found. And yeah, the parallels between the two, and the parallel between the snow child story and her abductor's story is another parallel. And it's just all these kind of parallels, and the way they all play together and mix together. It's really beautifully written, really, really thought out story. And I really recommend reading it. It's definitely not something I would have read if it hadn't come in my Box of Stories box, but I really honestly recommend it. It's so worth giving it a go. And please do let me know if you do read it, and let me know what you think. It's only short, 270 odd pages, and it's only a little book, but it is so worth it if you can give it a go. Please do let me know in the comments, and I will see you next week with another book review. Hopefully with better lighting because my ring light will be here. Fingers crossed.